In less than 20 minutes of basketball, 33 points were scored. Not conceived, not attempted, not scored. Stay put if you don't immediately see why that distinction is more important than anything else you'll read in a box score tonight. By the time it's all over, you'll have a completely different perspective on this performance than what every highlight reel in the post-game music recap has been giving you. There is a version of this tale that the uninformed audience takes away. It was a good debut for Caitlin Clark. She appeared at ease. She was a good fit for the team. That particular variant is technically correct, but practically worthless because Segal's debut on that floor wasn't particularly good. The performance was uncomfortable. Music, it was a live demonstration of something that had been the subject of months of theoretical debate in the women's basketball community. And it landed with the type of clarity that puts a stop to theoretical arguments and initiates practical ones. The question of whether she should be on Team USA is no longer relevant. Now, the true discussion is about what Team USA would look like without her and whether or not anyone in that committee room is willing to speak out what the tape is yelling at maximum volume. We will discuss every aspect of it. The tape, the figures, the teammates, the third quarter that no one is discussing nearly enough, and the 2028 Olympic scenario that has become much more complicated for everyone who isn't Caitlin Music Clark. Before we delve into the detailed analysis, please click the like button immediately if this is the type of analysis that goes above the cursory summary you've already seen everywhere else. It lets us know that you want more of this, and it keeps us pursuing tales with genuine stakes. Now prior to discussing anything else, the numbers should be accurately interpreted. Therefore, let's start with what actually happened on that floor. 19 minutes, 17 points, 12 assists, and a plus 35 rating. Even on their own, those headline numbers are impressive. However, 33 is the number that reframes them all. Music, that is the total number of points generated. When she was active, the offense's output was compared against her own scoring as well as the three-point baskets her passes produced in real time. In 19 minutes, 33 points were scored against a team that wasn't easily defeated. With relation to basketball, qualifying for international tournaments. Now that the broadcast has passed that amount, take a moment to consider it. It was noted in passing in the recaps. It is completely encircled by the highlight package. And that's the issue with the way this performance is being handled, because 33 points made in less than 20 minutes isn't a nice fact music you bring up in conversation. It is the main point of contention. It is the thesis. Each additional piece of information from this game is a footnote to that figure. To comprehend understanding the distinction between a player who fills a stat line and a player who generates offense at a systemic level is crucial to understanding why it matters so much. You have something to point at when a music player fills a stat line. Strong assist total, high shooting, and a big scoring game. The production is authentic. It can be counted. Additionally, it provides some insight into the actions of that person. However, it doesn't necessarily reveal what the team became as a result of them. A different approach is taken by a player who produces offense at a systemic level. Music, they alter what's accessible for everyone else. They facilitate shots, generate previously unobtainable driving lanes, and draw defensive attention in ways that free up space that the offense could never have created on its own. Their fingerprints can be found on items they haven't actually touched. Additionally, you nearly always underestimate their actual performance when you attempt to gauge them solely by individual box score figures. Both are done by Caitlin Clark. She simultaneously generates at the systemic level and fills the stat line. And when you attempt to condense the systemic contribution into a single figure, you get the 33-point figure. Music, it's not flawless. There isn't just one number. However, it suggests something genuine. And this game was really about the real thing. Her pace of 12 assists in 19 minutes would place her in historical company for a single effort if it were maintained over the course of a 40-minute game. That is not a realistic expectation, but rather a completely mathematical exercise due to projecting rotations and game flow. Music, however, the math still reveals something crucial about how quickly she was working. Music, the transgression wasn't simply moving. Before she arrived, the team had not been working at this level of efficiency and speed. And the figures amply demonstrate that disparity. The plus 35 is another number that merits greater consideration than it has received. The difference between Segal and Team USA increased by 35 points during her 19 minutes on the court. That isn't the result of good matchups, good fortune, or a defense that was just going through a rough patch. For the duration of her time on the court, the player continuously makes the right choice more quickly than the defense can react to it. The efficiency wasn't sporadic. It persisted. Music. Let's now discuss the real-time appearance of that efficiency. Because you can only learn what happened from the numbers. You can learn why from the tape. The game's tempo changed as soon as Caitlin Clark took the court. Not gradually, not over a few possessions as each person discovered their rhythm. The game's music tempo changed the moment she held the ball for the first time. Additionally, the reason it was unique is something that gets called a court music vision, but that term doesn't adequately convey what was taking place. A player with court vision is one who can see the floor effectively and make deft passes. That's what Clark does. However, what transpired against Sonajal was more than just the floor. She and the players around her shared a sense of expectation. Ryan Howard was attacking downhill at full speed as soon as she had the ball in her hands. Music even before the last possession ended, Paige Burkers was moving forward on the wing. Already, Kelsey Plum was discovering clear space on the edge as she knew what was about to happen. That movement wasn't reflexive at all. It was foreseeable. The players in Clark's immediate vicinity decided to move without waiting to see where the pass was headed. They were running because they had an innate understanding developed through shared basketball experiences, practices, and film sessions that if they ran, a perfectly timed pass would already be on its way. What turns a gifted basketball team into something that appears nearly mechanical in its accuracy is that instinct and the group's faith in her judgment. There is a difference in basketball that a facilitator and a tempo conductor don't talk about enough. The ball is moved effectively by a facilitator. They make the correct pass, steer clear of poor choices, maintain possession, and rhythmically distribute to shooters. Facilitation is a vital skill. Effective facilitators improve teams in quantifiable ways. However, facilitation is inherently reactive. The facilitator passes the ball to the offense after it creates an opportunity. What a tempo conductor does is essentially different. A tempo the conductor does more than simply react to the offense. They establish the circumstances that make the offense feasible. They set the speed at which each asset functions. Before the play begins, they determine how quick or sluggish the game will be. Additionally, the defense is always in a position to react to something that has already occurred rather than anticipating something that may because everyone else on the floor is tuned to that decision. The latter was done by Clark versus Segal. She was not reacting to the transgression. She was producing it. She made all of her decisions before the defense could close the gap. The speed wasn't rapid in an erratic or careless manner. It was quick and surgical. The distinction between those two things is crucial. Contested shoots and traffic turnovers result from a careless pace. Because the defense is constantly one step behind trying to recover rather than in position trying to contest, a surgical pace results in open looks, layups, and free throw attempts. Before defenders had a chance to settle down, possessions were coming to an end. And the reason it's so hard to stop that pace is more than just speed. It's the assurance that goes along with it. Clark doesn't think twice. Between reading the floor and delivering the ball, she doesn't hesitate for a single second. The tempo is devastating music because there is no hesitation, and by the time a defender realizes what is occurring, it has already occurred. We must now discuss the turnovers since they will occur and should be thoroughly investigated rather than dismissed as a generic complaint. She made 3 turnovers in the end. That figure will be the first thing some analysts look at when they wish to moderate the storyline surrounding this performance. And 3 turnovers in 19 minutes seems like a good reason to be concerned. At the international level, where skilled defenses make you pay for every error, turnover rate is crucial. Here's how that argument is affected by context, though. In the last 10 seconds of a game that had already been decided by a wide margin, 2 of the 3 turnovers occurred. There was no doubt about the result. The game's competitive phase has long since ended. Music. What was going on in those last seconds? Basketball is the type of loose, experimental basketball that teams play when players are just running out of time and the scoreboard is no longer important. It is a category error to count those turnovers with those that happen during heated, competitive game scenarios. Treating them as equivalent distorts the analysis in an untruthful way because they are not the same thing. The most intriguing changeover is the third one. Angel Reese received a full-court pass that almost made contact. Consider the true meaning of that sentence. A full-court pass that almost connected with a target during a game. It wasn't a Hail Mary thrown into traffic in the hopes that music would be present. Throwing the ball the whole length of the floor to a player she recognized as having position was a targeted, read-based decision that was executed with enough accuracy to almost succeed. That isn't negligence. That is not a careless choice made by an uncontrollable athlete. Compared to the majority of guards who will ever play this game, that player operates with a degree of confidence and spatial awareness that belongs on an entirely different scale. In the same way that a half-court shot that rims out renders the effort dangerous, the fact that it failed to connect does not automatically make it a poor choice. Something caught her eye. She tried it music with her arm and precision, and it almost worked. The turnover argument is completely disproved by context. The remainder of the performance, which includes 33 points created, 12 assists, a plus 35, and a squad that appeared to be an entirely different offensive organism when she was leading it compared to when she wasn't, is what remains after the turnover debate is resolved. We'll get to that final section, which contains the game's true narrative. However, since this was a team effort and the people surrounding Clark deserve recognition, let's start by looking at the rest of the roster. Analysis. Rhyne Howard's performance in this game is deserving of real praise. The claim that Howard was the game's lone scorer is valid. She was physical, aggressive, and successful on all fronts from the first possession. She applied constant offensive pressure to a defense that was unable to keep up with the speed. Additionally, her consistent scoring efficiency demonstrated a player who was acting with genuine confidence rather than merely taking advantage of open looks. This is the point at which a clear distinction must be made, because it is important for the greater discussion. Music leading in attack is not the same as leading in scoring. Putting more points on the board than any other member of your squad is what it means to lead in scoring. If you were in charge of an offense, you were largely responsible for its success. These two items may occasionally belong to the same player. They didn't this evening. The top scorer was Howard. The offensive was being led by Clark. And when it comes to roster building and Olympic starting lineups, music, that distinction really matters. Because there are differences between what you need from a wing scorer and what you need from a point guard. Music. Both roles were performed tonight by various performers who excelled in their respective roles. That's actually a positive indication for Team USA. It's a positive musical sign, not a complex one. When it comes to exceptional rosters, it's not about having talented individuals. Rather, it's about how those abilities work together to improve the team rather than causing conflict or duplication. There is no conflict when Clark writes music and Howard scores. Symbiosis exists. That's the you'd like to see more of this team. In this game, Kelsey Plum was useful. She avoided causing issues, played within the system, and made the correct choices at the right times. Sometimes being utilitarian and disciplined is just what's needed on a team this deep, with so much skill at every position. When the situation demands it, Plum has demonstrated at every level of this sport that she is more than capable. That moment wasn't in this specific game. In the game, the system was already operating at a high level, and the objective was to work within it without interfering with its functionality. That was what she did. Chelsea Gray had trouble. No honest examination can soften that result into something more palatable. There was no music rhythm. A number of choices seemed out of step with the tempo that the rest of the attack was attempting to maintain. Passes that ought to have arrived on time were delayed. An additional processing beat was needed for reads that ought to have been automated. Music Gray's track record speaks for itself at a loudness that one-off night cannot mute. Therefore, this performance doesn't define her worth, her background, or her ability. However, The performance was what it was, and one of the most obvious and significant effects of the game was the difference in the offensive flow between Gray's and Clark's directing. Paige Buckers was obviously tense going into this game. It was a real stage. The consequences were genuine. Even a high-stakes regular season game doesn't have the same weight as international qualification basketball with Olympic roster talk tied to every possession. And early on, the Bucks were feeling the burden. It took her offense some time to get traction. She wasn't getting the shots she usually gets while sleeping. Additionally, the body early minute language revealed a player who was exerting a little more pressure than was necessary. But this is what caught my attention. The defense remained unwavering even during that chilly period. She was pushing ball handlers, protecting the entire court, and performing the physical labor that keeps possessions together before the scoring touch is applied. It is not a simple task. Instead of directing that energy into defensive effort that doesn't result in a box score, the temptation is to push harder on offense to find a way out of the difficulty when your offense is cold and you are under pressure. Boer used it for self-defense. That's maturity music. That's a player who recognizes that her importance to the club goes beyond her offensive contributions and who sticks to that idea despite the fact that it would be simpler not to. After she finally calmed down, she began to resemble the player that the basketball community already knew she was. Music quick, decisive, dangerous off the dribble, and effective in areas where defenders believed they had her confined. Her performance was defined by how she overcame the early tightness. In this game, Angel Reese's duties were physical and targeted defense, rebounding, and music. Paint presence, making it difficult for anyone attempting to work close to the basket on the opposite end. She was given 4 fouls and had few minutes. Although it would be natural to see that statistic negatively, 4 fouls in a few minutes actually show how energetic and physical she was in close proximity to the hoop during her time on the court. Because she was out of position or making careless defensive plays, she wasn't fouling. She was disputing everything and competing at a level of toughness required by the game's flow, which is why she was fouling. She played her part to the fullest. Throughout the game, Erica Hamby made a number of simple transition baskets. It's also important to note that Hamby's lack of technique as a finisher made those baskets feel difficult. The speed of play created those opportunities practically effortlessly, which made them feel at ease. Clark's spacing and the speed at which positions switch from defense to attack result in finishing opportunities that appear straightforward, but are actually the result of a well-functioning system. The system placed Hami in the appropriate locations, and she completed her tasks when given the opportunity. That's just what you require. From that position. This is where the game's true narrative takes place. And it's the section that the highlight packages virtually disregarded, the broadcast skimmed over, and the recap condensed into a single sentence. In the third quarter, there was a stretch. A seasoned heavy lineup, seasoned parts, and musicians that have been in this program for years are familiar with the system and have previously performed together and won on worldwide stages. On paper, this squad should be able to maintain attacking momentum continuously. The composition of a coaching staff comfortable since there are no doubts regarding the background, experience, or comprehension of what is expected of them. And it was clear that the offense music had stopped. Not slightly, not in a fashion that could be attributed to a few bad bounces, a cold shooting spell, or a defensive adjustment. Music clearly. The distance shrank. There was a decrease in energy. The first half's seemingly effortless tempo vanished as if it had never happened. Things that ought to have been swift and definitive turned slow and inquisitive. Players who had been confidently attacking music were now standing. Instead of making something out of nothing, they are waiting for something to develop. Music you could watch it unfold, possession by possession, in real time. Every other player on the floor appeared to be half a beat and half a step ahead of the defense due to Clark's set tempo and rhythm. And you could see how much the offense had relied on it when it wasn't there. It wasn't because the veterans weren't good basketball players. Music not due to a lack of system comprehension. They did. However, because there are 2 versions of this offense, one that occurs when Clark is leading it and another that does not. Furthermore, the output of the 2 versions differs greatly from one another. There was a clear difference between that group and the offense under Clark's direction. It was stark. It was the kind of contrast that can be seen without study. To comprehend what was happening, you didn't need to compute point-created figures or read a plus-minus chart. Music as you watched the game, you could sense it. And everything confirmed the feeling. The numbers stated later. Music the offense was an organism while she was on it. When she wasn't playing, the offense consisted of a group of gifted players attempting to establish structure from the outside in as opposed to having it established for them at the point of attack. Music you can't unsee that contrast once you've noticed it. It's not theatrical to state that. Music when you view the tape with this question in mind, it literally describes what happens to you. You return to the stretch of the third quarter. You see the gaps getting smaller. You observe the making decisions takes longer. You see the music energy drain from things that ought to be swift and decisive. And you know exactly what's causing the difference without anyone having to explain it to you. More significantly, you realize how crucial that distinction is to the discussion that has been developing around this program over the past few months. The roster rumors have already gone through several full cycles because the 2028 Olympics in Los Angeles have been approaching for a long time. Who gets started? Who is in charge of the offense? How can top guards work together on a single squad without stepping on one another? When the top level of international play approaches and all teams have thoroughly researched American personalities and habits, how does the system look? Music in every conceivable arrangement, the questions have been posed, addressed, and reposed. Different analysts have reached different conclusions. Different frameworks have been offered by various former players. There has been a lot of heat generated by the discourse, but not always much light. That discussion was enhanced by more than just numbers tonight. It was reorganized since the query nobody was ever contending that Caitlin Clark lacked talent. Thus, it was never really a question of whether or not she was talented enough to play for Team USA. Fit, role, if her style of play translates to the international stage, and whether top veterans who have won at the highest level would submit to a player with less experience at this level were the questions. Music tonight provided simultaneous answers to all of those questions. There is no longer any doubt about the fit. It is true. The offensive transforms into a new entity when Clark maintains control over the tempo. Pace, music spacing, decision-making, and transition efficiency all improve in ways that are apparent on tape and quantifiable in terms of numbers. Veterans are not being asked to submit to someone who is less competent than them. They are required to operate in a system that enhances their capabilities. That is an improvement rather than a compromise. Every single statistic from tonight, the 33 points scored, the plus 35, and the 12 assists in 19 minutes points in the same way. Making the committee's case for not giving her a starting guard spot suddenly became much more difficult. Music, it's more difficult, but it's not impossible because committees will always find ways to argue if they're driven to do so. The proof is building up in one direction with a regularity that, once you've interacted with it, is very hard to refute. Consider the results of the projection math. Even if it is acknowledged that there are actual restrictions to full game forecasts from partial game data, Music, the margins would be worthy of record conversations if the offense produced at about the same level of efficiency that Clark was producing during her 19 minutes sustained over a full game. That isn't a reasonable expectation for a single game because there are rotations, defensive changes, and weariness, which are all genuine factors. However, even taking into consideration the gaps, the math yields those kinds of values. Is still providing you with crucial information regarding the speed at which she was functioning between projection and reality. Snorts, and the most crucial factor in defining the type of offense a team generates at the top international level is the speed at which a point guard operates. It doesn't matter how often they score, rebound, defend, or shoot from a distance. The music rate at which they make accurate decisions quickly, reliably, and under duress in a way that elevates everyone around them. The variable is that. And tonight, there was a clear response to that variable. The outcome of this qualifying competition will be more significant than most people currently realize. Applying reasonable skepticism to a single dominant performance versus a single opponent would be simple and, to be honest, appealing. Music outstanding players have outstanding individual games. A career statement is not made in a single game. Early performances appear more dominant than they actually are once defenses have had time to study tendencies and develop specific game plans. This is because context matters, opposition counts, and the international stage has a way of eliciting adaptations. Music that's all reasonable. It's important to remember all of that. The case for Caitlin Clark at the Olympic level was never based on a single performance. Hence, none of it affected the outcome against Segal. It was based on a steady stream of evidence that accumulated throughout the course of her career, from college to professional basketball to now at the international level. That dispute was not sparked by what transpired against Segal. In the setting when confirmation was most important and needed, it was confirmed. The doubters who needed to see it in an international qualifying Team USA outfit. In order to witness it on a real stage with real consequences, competition was required. That stage was musical tonight. The performances are overwhelming. The information is growing. Each qualifying game is a data point, and the data points are creating a pattern with a direction. There is no doubt about that path. As the tournament goes on, the questions about how this team is assembled for Los Angeles in 2028 will only grow louder because each game that generates the kind of stats we saw tonight makes it more difficult to explain why you would build the offense in any other way. Music, however, there is one question that keeps coming up. The broadcast refused to ask the question aloud. The question that the third quarter unintentionally addressed. Without her, how would this offense appear? We saw the solution. The distance shrank. The pace slowed. The organism transformed into a group of distinct individuals. There is a significant difference between the two iterations of the offense. There isn't a tiny decrease in transition possibilities or a marginal efficiency gap. It's the difference between an offense that functions adequately because the talent level is high enough that sufficient still looks, music, quite good, and an attack that operates with a clarity and tempo that defenders find difficult to contain. At the top level of international competition, pretty decent doesn't win Olympic gold. Teams with a problem that defenders are unable to completely resolve are the ones that win gold at the Olympics. Something that causes issues regardless of the changes you make, because the issue isn't caused by a predetermined play, a particular action, or a pattern that can be identified and addressed. It comes from a player that moves more quickly than your defense. Team USA has a tempo conductor, and the system may react to one. The question is whether the committee is prepared to build around that reality music unambiguously and without hesitation, or if the process will entail the kind of political maneuvering, experience waiting, and veteran deference that has previously complicated roster construction decisions at this level. The correct response is made clear by the tape. Against Segal, it was clear tonight. The next game and the one after that will make it clear. Because the player will continue to produce at the same level, the data will continue to point in the same direction because the level she's functioning at all isn't a good matchup or a hot streak. It serves as a basis. It's her identity as a basketball player. 19 minutes plus 35 rebounds, 12 assists, and 33 points scored. These figures won't go down. Furthermore, it becomes increasingly difficult for anyone to look at this situation objectively and pretend that there is still a genuine debate about what this offensive should look like and who should run it as more performances pile on top of each other. The 2028 Olympics will take place in Los Angeles. The roster will be assembled. The starting lineup will be decided. And Correct One player is presenting the best argument for how that lineup should look in real time on an international qualification stage, where every possession has actual consequences. Not through social media posts or interviews, where her name is the subject of a lot of discussion. Through the work, the tape, the numbers, and the plain, indisputable fact of what this offense becomes when she is guiding it versus what it becomes when she isn't. Anyone paying attention can see it. Now you've seen it. You can't unsee it after you've seen it, as we mentioned at the top. What follows is what makes viewing this worthwhile.